What do you do when you feel like all the inertia in your life has stalled? What do you do when you are stuck? Maybe you're in a job that you don't love, you have dreams and goals and aspirations, you have things you want to be doing, you have ideas, but you can't seem to make sustained momentum in any particular direction. How do you break free from that? What do you do? Let's talk about it. So the idea for today's topic came from a viewer who emailed me describing something similar to what I talk about in the opener. They are stuck in their current life reality and they can't seem to break free from that. And so he asked my opinion. Well, as it so happens, I'm in the midst of my own life reboot, life reinvention. I'm a big proponent of periodically making yourself uncomfortable by taking a leap of faith into the unknown towards something new, because being uncomfortable is where growth happens. If you have comfort, you will have a lot of times complacency, and that complacency is not going to let you take any risks toward something more positive out there. And that's the work that has to happen. You have to be willing to make yourself uncomfortable. So what I did is I pointed him toward a video that I did actually last year. I did a course on my website called Get Your Shit Together. It's a life improvement course that has 9 chapters in it. One of those chapters deals with this question of how do we break free from our static inertia in order to get ourselves where we would like to go in life. And so instead of me regurgitating some of the ideas that I talk about in that video, I thought it'd be more efficient to just put that video here and let you guys watch it. And if you like that kind of content and you're interested in watching that whole series, look in the description below, because I think I'll put a coupon code so you can get it at a really great price. So just go to rickellis.com, and I've got some swag over there and some other stuff that you might be interested in. So without further ado, let's watch that video. In the year 1519, Hernan Cortez arrived in the New World off of the coast of what would become Mexico. His goal was to lead his 600 men inland to the fabled Aztec city of Tenochtitlan. Of course, there was political infighting among his men, and there were rumors that half his men were going to desert and sail back to Cuba. So Hernan Cortez did something that ranks up there as one of the most badass moves in history. He sank his own ships, and in doing so sent a clear and unambiguous message to his men that there is no turning back. You guys have skin in the game now. There's only one way forward, and that's toward Tenochtitlan. And what a great metaphor that is. Burning the ships or sinking the ships, this idea that we need to put our ass on the line, this idea of taking that leap of faith into uncertainty, into the unknown, the idea of putting your skin into the game, which is the title of a great book by Nassim Taleb. All of these things are just indicators of being willing to take some risk toward your goal. It's not enough. It's not enough to have something out there you're working toward. You need, as Jordan Peterson says, something behind you, pushing you forward toward that destination. And what that thing is the pressure that comes from knowing that you just made a leap of faith toward this thing. So many people build a prison of their own making around themselves. The walls of that prison are made out of complacency and comfort. Comfort and complacency. You have that job that you don't love, but it pays for your mortgage and it lets you live a certain lifestyle and it lets you afford that car you like. You are comfortable. And as Floyd Mayweather says, it's real hard to get up at 5 a.m. and go run when you're sleeping in silk sheets. And so this idea of severing the cord and taking that leap forward, you have to risk something, whether it's a financial risk, a physical risk, an emotional or mental risk. You have to risk something in order to achieve, because risk means you have skin in the game. And now you have that pressure pushing you forward. Pressure is a massive advantage. Why? Because Well, pressure, for one, is one of the greatest motivators that you will ever have. A lot of people struggle with motivation. They struggle with dedication and discipline. They start a project and they don't have the ability to stick with it. And so they read books on the subject. They attend workshops on the subject. Everyone talks about motivation. To be honest with you, I couldn't care less about motivation or discipline or dedication. I don't even think of those terms in the least, because when you have the pressure that comes from knowing that you have just made that decision point to go, it's the greatest motivator in the world. You don't need dedication. You've got that pressure that's going to make you incredibly dedicated. You're not going to get up out of bed in the morning thinking, well, I wonder if I'll make progress toward my goals. You're going to get up thinking, I have to make it happen today. It's the power of now. And that's what pressure lets you do. Let me give a few examples from my own life of me taking this sort of action, taking a leap of faith, because it would be totally inauthentic of me to be preaching risk and putting your butt on the line if that's not something that I've ever been willing to do. And I was inspired to do this by my mother, who was in some ways kind of a tortured soul, but she was a fearless woman who reinvented her life many times. And I was always very inspired by that, and I always tried to emulate that in my own life. So in my early 20s, I was playing in a band in Los Angeles. We eventually built up a pretty good following. We were playing the clubs on the Sunset Strip. We were recording demos. We were having conversations with record companies. We were hovering on that fringe of making it. But after about 4 years, eventually it fell apart and the band broke up, and I was at a crossroads in my life. I was working as a manager of a company that installed auto alarms, but it was a fun job, but it wasn't my career. It wasn't anything I felt passion for. So I was just not sure what I was going to do next. So my friend and I, we ended up going to Cancun on vacation to chase girls. And one night we ended up at the Hard Rock Cafe, and there was a band playing radio hits. They were playing covers. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I was going to do with my life. And I told my friend, I said, I'm coming down here and I'm going to do that. He thought it was the booze talking, but 6 months later, I had quit my job and I arrived in Cancun, Mexico with my guitar in hand. And I started going from club to club to club, to hotel lobby bars, to all the venues, to try to figure out where are the musicians in this town, where are the gigs at in this town. And through that process of networking, I was offered a chance to play with this rock group in which the singer-guitarist was leaving to go back to the United States, so I was able to slide into his spot. And then 6 months later, the owners of this mega nightclub that was under construction that held 4,000 people, it was going to be this massive, incredible venue, they reached out to me and they said, hey, would you put a band together for us? And so I searched and I found the coolest guys, the best rockers, the guys with the best image in town. Half were American, half were Mexican, and I put this little super group together. And for the next 3 years, we were the house band playing 6 nights a week in front of thousands of tourists, spring break, craziness. And that became one of the highlights of my life, that period of time playing in that environment. I would go on to meet a girl that would become my wife down there as well. And all of those things happened simply because I was willing to rip the Band-Aid off, take myself out of my comfort zone, leave Los Angeles, and head to Mexico. When that gig came to an end, I decided I wanted to become an audio engineer. And so I decided to go back to school. I wanted to learn to make albums, to record music, to mix music. So we moved to Florida so I could go back to school. When I graduated, we were flat broke, but I needed to get to Los Angeles. That's where the music industry is. I need to get there. And we didn't have a penny to our name. So what did I do? Here comes the next leap of faith. I sold all my guitars, I sold all my music equipment. And it saddens me today because I had some great guitars that I loved. I had a classic Les Paul. I had, a bunch of equipment that was valuable to me. but I sold it all. And then my wife sold all her jewelry. She sold memorabilia. We sold everything that would make us even a little bit of money. We went to the pawn shop to amass enough money to get ourselves to Los Angeles so I could hopefully start a career in audio. And we did. I ended up starting my career at a great recording studio where I was able to cut my teeth doing a wide range of projects. Eventually, I decided to make the leap of faith, and here's another decision point. I'm going to be a freelance recording engineer and just be solely responsible for myself. And I did. And eventually I was doing projects all over LA, I was doing projects in Japan and in Europe, and it turned into an incredible career. All of that became possible simply because I was willing to take some leaps of faith. Fast forward 10 years, I had an idea for a software application. I'd never developed software before, so I had to teach myself a programming language. Eventually, I released the software to the world, thinking it was just going to be a side hustle. I was working on the TV show Family Guy at the time. But the software started taking off real fast. Within a few months, we had been featured in magazines, and McGraw-Hill published a book about it. And here comes that decision point again. That had become almost overnight more than a full-time job for me, but I was working full-time in audio, and my wife had just had a child. She wasn't working, and so I had the mortgage, the cars, the expenses of everything on my shoulders. But season 3 of Family Guy was coming to an end, and I sat down with my wife one night and I said, look, the software is not making us enough to live, but the trajectory is looking good. What do you think about us selling the house, me quitting audio, selling one of the cars, and moving to somewhere that's less expensive to live? And we did. Another leap of faith, cutting the cord. Again, feeling that pressure that comes from having to make it happen. That company ended up becoming a multi-million-dollar tech company. Again, all of those things happened simply because I had the willingness to take that step forward, take myself out of my comfort zone, take on some risk, and simply go for it. That's the recipe for getting yourself toward your goals. And you might say, well, Rick, you're probably wired different. You just are totally risk tolerant. You don't have any fear. You probably have a malfunctioning amygdala because you have the willingness to take that step. But no, this is not true in the least. Not at all. I am very, very susceptible to fear. Every time I've had to make a decision like this, I have been absolutely terrified. But here's the thing, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being scared shitless and being willing to do it anyway. So I encourage you today to assess your life. And I'm not telling you to do anything reckless. I'm not telling you to sell your house. I'm not telling you anything. But assess your life and figure out where the walls of that prison are that are holding you back from taking that bold leap towards something that's going to take you where you want to go in life. And then figuring out where you need to blast a door into one of those walls so you can get after it, put some skin in the game, and go forth into a new reality propelled by the pressure of knowing you have to make it happen. So that's the way forward, and I encourage you to do it.